Has been called a military showplace. Fort McClellan is our destination. This post is the home of the Chemical Corps School, which provides instruction in chemical warfare theories and techniques to students from all branches of the armed forces and to military personnel from friendly foreign nations. Much of the work here is done in the field, where the Chemical Corps School conducts many kinds of experiments and practice problems. We are in time to witness one of them. In this case, clouds of smoke create a situation for a decontamination exercise. Carrying spray guns and other equipment, the students pierce the smoke-filled field and start their operations. This particular problem is to free equipment from dangerous chemicals or gases. Wearing their special clothing, these men look as though they came from a planet from out of space. Let's find out a little more about these men in their mysterious garb. What is the purpose of the smoke, Lieutenant?
The smoke, in this case, is used to simulate a CBR attack. Usually we put mild chemical irritants in it to make the decontamination personnel realize the situation is here. Today, however, there are none of those chemical irritants in the smoke.
Well, I thought as much, being out here without any mask on or one of these protective garbs. Now, you mentioned CBR agents. What are they?
Well, CBR agents are chemical, biological, and radiological agents used in warfare.
What are these suits made out of, these special uniforms like?
The uniform that I have on here is an impermeable uniform. It's made of butyl rubber. It protects us from harmful chemical and biological agents by keeping them out or excluding them from our body. And there's another uniform that we have that you see here. This is what we call combat protective clothing. This clothing has put into it certain chemicals which tend to neutralize chemical agents and tends to kill some biological agents. Now, the uniform that the combat soldier wears is not as good a uniform, doesn't give as good a protection as does the uniform I'm wearing here. But it is a good uniform. An infantryman can conduct his mission, can go ahead and effect his mission while wearing these clothing.
But do you ever use the real thing, the real gases in this training?
We surely do. We use very realistic training here. At the beginning of this exercise, or just prior to the beginning, we place contamination, CBR contamination, on this equipment.
I see.
And so these personnel are actually doing decontamination as we would do it, as if we'd find contaminated equipment in the field.
Well, thank you very much, Lieutenant. Very interesting.
Thank you very much.
We leave Fort McClellan and travel to our last stop in the 3rd Army area, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. On flanking signs at the impressive entrance to the Leader's School, one reads of the infantryman's mission and his motto on the other side. Our first stop is to watch a group in the infantry leader's course, faced with the problem of fording a stream bearing a wounded buddy. A medical corps man gives him advice and encouragement of a sort.
Okay, you gather him in and die before you get him across. What are you waiting for? Are you willing to drown, huh? Come on! Boy, I'm so glad I'm not in this suit. I didn't pin on lifesavers like you. Come on, head over there.
That extra tough talk is premeditated. The hazing received in exercises like this is a supreme test of potential leader's ability to keep his head under the most trying circumstances and conditions. All the techniques adapted to foot soldiering from time immemorial are taught here at Fort Jackson. On this field, effective concealment practices are demonstrated for trainees, and to some of them, it's entertaining as well as instructive. Camouflage of equipment, not only from ground observance, But from the air as well is another phase of knowledge imparted to these new soldiers who have only just begun their military service. And as these men begin their training as soldiers on a huge post in South Carolina, named for one of America's great historical figures, Andrew Jackson, the big picture camera ends its tour of the Third Army area. We've traveled hundreds of miles through the southeastern United States to bring you the highlights. Now our direction is to the westward. This is Lieutenant John Mortimer inviting you to come along with us again next week when we visit San Antonio, Texas, and begin our tour of Fourth Army.
That's the story of Third Army, another in a special series of guided tours through the Continental Armies of America. Next week, Lieutenant John Mortimer will again be our escort when we'll be traveling through the area of Fourth Army. The marked contrast between the Army of today, which employs weapons such as guided missiles, and that of a century ago can be clearly seen when we visit many historic relics of America's westward expansion. This is Sergeant Stuart Queen inviting you to tune in again next week for another look at your Army in action on The Big Picture.
The Big Picture is a weekly television report to the nation on the activities of the Army at home and overseas. Produced by the Signal Corps Pictorial Center. Presented by the U.S. Army in cooperation with this station. You can be an important part of the big picture. You can proudly serve with the best equipped, the best trained, the best fighting team in the world today, the United States Army.